in principle, predicated on this particular interpretation of God as a supreme dictator and judge. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Now, if I could play devil's advocate for God for a moment, could you appreciate a God who watches us and our actions eagerly and with great interest because he created a world where everything is permitted?
Yes, I can picture it, but not without horror.
Hi, Christopher. My name is Linda Ward Selby. I came from Toronto for this.
This isn't about my penis, is it?
No. I wanted to ask you, in light of the number of intellectuals and well-educated people and Templeton Prize winners that invoke the names of Richard Dawkins, you and others who are speaking out and liberating us right now, are they deluded, dishonest, or emotionally dysfunctional? And may I also ask, with regards to your book, you mentioned that at age 9 that you realized that you might have been an atheist, but yet had 2 religious weddings, one Greek Orthodox and then Jewish. Why did you do that? When my second wedding came along, I went for the Justice of the Peace in a real estate office under a stuffed trout.
Now I got the problem. 2 failed marriages and 1 failed erection. You gave up on God.
You still don't know. You still don't know how that prayer was answered, Reverend. That's what you might call a premature ejaculation on your part.
Not if I had Mary to give me witness.
I'm sorry, but I only have one ex-wife, and not even she in her most adamant moments would describe our marriage as failed. I will say this, by the way. I hope to encourage anyone here who might be ever in any difficulty. If you had a child with someone, you really can never be divorced from them. And she and I are very proud of our children, and they are rather happy with us. It's a pity we couldn't get along better, but anyway, don't let me get too husky about this. On with the show, skipping lightly over the genitalia. Isaac Newton was a spiritualist, as far as we know. He seems to have believed in a number of weird and crackpotted theories. Joseph Priestley, the great Unitarian and rationalist and defender of the American Revolution, forced to flee from England to Philadelphia after the monarchists and Tories burned his laboratory, discoverer of oxygen, believed in the phlogiston theory, the most exploded theory that we know of. You'll find the coincidence or coexistence of superstition and mania of all kinds with great scientific achievement all over the place. There may now be people who are real physicists. Fred Hoyle was actually one of them, the late Fred Hoyle, the man who believed in steady state and disbelieved what he contemptuously called the Big Bang, was also a man of odd, intermittent faith. It doesn't matter. What you could not do is say that your evidence as a physicist or a biologist supported your private religious beliefs. It would be a coincidence. Whereas if you're Richard Dawkins, the coherence between what you have found and what you've contributed to science and the extreme unlikelihood of the existence of any God is pretty striking. Hope that's clear.
Please.
First of all, I have no interest in anyone's sex life. Sorry. My question builds upon your response. Why do so many people seem to feel such a deep need to believe things which are obviously untrue? Homeopathy, angels, UFOs, you name it. All the claptrap which fills endless magazines, television shows, etc.
As I understood the question, it was essentially why is there such a persistent need for faith? Why do so many people continue to believe, if Christopher argues that the species has evolved beyond the need for it? Is that your question?
Well, not quite. What is the fundamental attraction of the illogical?
Is what?
Say it again.
What is the fundamental attraction of the illogical?
Oh, is it
the illogical? Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, are people drawn to religion because they're drawn to superstition and things that aren't logical?
Yeah. Well, you first.
Let's go in reverse.
All right. Then, well, look, there's a poem by Philip Larkin called Church Going, which I hope anyone here who has not read, that's sentences going nowhere, I hope anyone who hasn't read that poem will let me do them a favor and look it up for themselves before this time tomorrow, which would perfectly express my point of view. It's a wonderful statement by the greatest English poet of this period about the experience of visiting a church, not wanting to be able to believe, but not being able to dismiss the seriousness, the history, the tradition, the beauty of it. I couldn't do without the poems of George Herbert or John Donne either, which are strictly devotional poems. I think you could fake being a devotional painter. You could be a painter who didn't believe in God and pretend you did for patronage. You couldn't fake being John Donne or George Herbert. I couldn't do without their work. I couldn't do without Gothic architecture or devotional music either. I wouldn't trust anyone who did, who had no feeling for this. And people who don't know what the numinous and the transcendent feel like, who don't experience anything, combinations of landscape and music and poetry, and also the melancholy of one's own life, the realization that we're going to die, and that our children actually need us to do so. Other melancholy reflections of this kind are, to that extent, not poetic, not human, not literary, not civilized. But the supernatural adds to this absolutely zero, it seems to me, and in some ways subtracts from its grandeur and its seriousness. So I'm one of those who Pascal is actually thinking about, or was thinking about when he wrote. He wrote to the person who is so made that he cannot believe. There are millions of us. There always have been. There are now. There are going to be many more of us in the future. We're just a little bit fed up of being treated like freaks in American culture.
From my belief, do not believe that everyone believes in things that are illogical. I think that, and there are different theologians that approach it differently. I guess the closest, well, not exactly where I am, but Paul Tillich, that talks about a personal God, would be going in the direction that I believe. I believe in my own experiences and my own relationship with God. And that is not based on any illogical, unbelievable act. I do not believe things that are necessarily part of dogma. And I think that Richard, you or whoever has the right to disbelieve it without being a freak. But I don't think that I am a freak that believes in illogical things, because I believe that the reason the world operates in a certain order is because there is a supreme force that ordered it. And I don't think that, I happen to agree with Richard that I think religion has been one of the most misused things in history, but I don't think that has anything to do with the existence or non-existence of God. I think that has something to do with man's misuse or use of what is absolutely there, and that is a supreme being.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions. Let's get through as many as we can. Sir.
I wonder if you both might comment on this. In an age when there is so much, as Mr. Hitchens would put it, wonderful secular knowledge that should disprove or replace the value or the importance of religion, all the modern knowledge that we have, why is it that in so much of the world religion is growing rapidly? In the global south particularly, evangelical Christianity is growing at a tremendous rate, and there are plenty of statistics to back that up. And even when people experience the most horrendous evil, they seem to turn in some strong ways towards religious belief. My brother-in-law is a U.S. Air Force chaplain. He served 2 tours in Iraq. He's presently in Afghanistan. He ministers to men and women who have seen horrendous evil and experienced it firsthand. And yet his services are overflowing. He's done many baptisms. Please help us understand a time when the human race should have grown out of all of this. Why is it growing so dramatically? Thank you.
you want first go of that?
I'm happy to yield to them. Well, at the risk of being callous, I seem to have gone inaudible. Yeah. I don't think that we should be paying for chaplains. I don't think the US government should be employing any. James Madison's co-author of the Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom and of the First Amendment, therefore, was very adamant on the point, very clear. There shouldn't be, it's flat out unconstitutional to pay or employ a chaplain to open the proceedings of Congress or to be in the armed forces. We can't have chaplains on our payroll. That's that. People who want to pray can't be stopped, but they can do it. Of all the solitary activities, apart from the search for, never mind. Surely that's one that doesn't need a paid state mediator. It's a negation of the American Revolution. So that first. Second, yes, the modernity, involving as it does a huge exchange of technology and population and innovation in a very churning and vertiginous manner, of course means that a lot of lives have to be lived in a very insecure and risky way. And it's not at all unlike our nature as a species to try and cling to stability, certainty, and consolation in those cases. It explains itself, it seems to me. What is notable, though, is that it hasn't come up in thousands of years with any superior explanation to the old ones. It still is going back to myths that were discredited and exploded many years ago, and these, of course, turn out to be false consolations, whereas the consolations of philosophy and of the aesthetic and of the beauty of science and of reason so on, available to us all the time and really able to explain why things happen, why terrible wounds are inflicted in Afghanistan and so forth. No, that won't do. Let's, like some absolute loser, find the person who Paley means, who says, finds a watch on the beach and thinks, I don't know what this is for, but it seems to tick, it must be for something, but doesn't understand it. We find this wonderful truffle and open it and look at the chocolate and throw it away and then munch on the wrapper. I don't understand it, but I'm one of those who are not made this way.
I think the core of your question, I think that the more mankind learns, the more mankind understands that it does not have all the answers. And that's why people continue to reach and seek answers that is beyond what even in this age we've been able to discover. I think that is why. And I think that there's also the innate emptiness in mankind to always go back to the core of what made mankind in the first place. And that, to me, is a supreme being. I think that answers the question of why I think the Sorry. I thought you got the Holy Ghost or something while I was saying. But I think that's why you see the rise of evangelism.
That's when it shout and holler.
Whether or not I agree with the rise or not is another question. But I think the quest is inspired because of the increased knowledge has not answered the question of where it begins and what governs all of the things that obviously operate in some order and with some precision. And I must say, at the risk of my sounding callous, it amazes me that it doesn't bother you that we spend $2 trillion in a war we should have never been in. You just worry about paying the chaplains to pray over it.